Halloween forever.
Welcome, boys and ghouls. You know what that sound means. It's time for another Minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
I'm Steve.
And guys, get fucking psyched. We are about to talk about Halloween Kills. We've all watched it. It was apparently released today, but I saw it last night. And you guys saw it. You guys both see it last night, or did you watch it today?
I mean, technically today, because I watched it like 1 a.m. on
Gotcha.
Peacock. So
Gotcha. So
I'm glad you were able to get it.
yeah,
we didn't know exactly when it was going to drop on Peacock. I know there was some kind of ambiguity around when that was going to be available, but it must have dropped at midnight probably, huh?
I think so. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was still working on something else, and then it just by the time I was done with that, it was past midnight. So I checked Twitter, and Twitter said it was up, and I said, well, then I'll watch it.
Well, there you go. That's all you need to know. I went to the theater last night.
Twitter never lies.
I went to the, that is true. And those are words to live by. If you read it on Twitter, it is true. I went to the 9:25 show or something like that at the local theater last night. Meg, you went and saw it at the theater as well, didn't you?
Yep. I went to the AMC in the Waterfront.
Yeah. Were there folks there?
Oh yeah, it was pretty packed. When I bought the tickets in advance, I got to choose my seats, and I saw so many seats already sold. So I was just like, holy shit, this is going to be a packed show.
Yeah, I bought mine online ahead of time too, and picked the kind of prime spot. And I went to one of those just because it's the closest theater to me that was playing it last night. It was one of those kind of like posh kind of luxury, with the big plush reclining seats and stuff like that. So they ask you to pick your seat, right off the bat.
It came with a butler too.
Yeah, he had like a nice, he had one of those silver platters that he brought my milk duds out on and my junior mints and all that sort of thing. No, but it was it was actually it wasn't that crowded. Again, Thursday night, late show. I'm sure the earlier one was a lot more crowded, and also it's a little bit smaller theater. It's not nearly as big as the big AMC Waterfront that you went to. So, but there was probably 15 other people. There wasn't a ton, but yeah, it was fun. Hadn't been in the theater since I saw Candyman. So yeah, just that experience, that kind of anticipation and hype around going to see a new Halloween movie. It's like something I remember when I saw H2O for the first time back in 98 or whatever it was, kind of getting that it's, for whatever reason, it kind of hits a little different with me going to see a new Halloween movie. I don't know. So it was fun. It was fun. We'll get into what we feel about the movie, because just poking around on the old interwebs this morning, a lot of dramatically competing opinions on this film, not terrifically dissimilar to Candyman, which we had already discussed. But before we do that, let's do a real quick rundown, because obviously the show is new. We weren't around doing this here podcast back in 2018 when the first of the David Gordon Green directed trilogy of what is going to be a trilogy of Halloween movies first started. So yeah, let's go around the horn. Like what were your thoughts, just high level on the 2018 movie? Where did you see it? How did you feel about it, upon first viewing? And then how has it kind of sunken in for you over the last few years?
So I know for a fact around 2018, I saw it on a streaming service that I probably can't exactly remember which one. But like at that point for that one, I don't know if I had any other feelings besides just being like, oh my God, Jamie Lee Curtis is just fucking badass. But I feel like rewatching it this week in preparation, I was like, yeah, she's a little dramatic, she's a little dramatic. But still, regardless, I thought it was I'm glad I revisited it before this, like watching this film, you know, because I think it put a lot of things into perspective. So yeah, I enjoyed overall, like, and especially now seeing it in comparison, I'm like, yeah, 2018 was pretty badass, and it was very gory and like brutal and all the things that you want to see out of a Halloween movie. You just want to see shit getting fucked up and Laurie trying to be her badass self.
Yeah, I saw it on a streaming service, wink. But I don't know. I didn't completely love it when I first saw it because it was too tonally split for me. Like, I like the idea that they set up like this allegory of generational trauma that Michael Myers represents.
Yeah.
You know, which, you know, is shown through Laurie and her daughter and her granddaughter. But then they also like make you root for him in killing, you know, everybody that's around, because everybody else is like an obnoxious. It's still held in that old slasher trope.
Yeah.
Of like everybody's just obnoxious and you kind of want to see them get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It was too tonally split for me. But after rewatching it, I don't know. I was kind of over that stuff anyway. So I was like, it's fine. It's a good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see that. You know, I think we talked about it on, you know, maybe some episodes back, but I think it's probably safe to say this is a franchise that's probably a little closer to my heart than you guys. You know, Halloween is just, you know, the first Halloween 1978 is my favorite film of all time. I've seen it, you know, I can't even imagine how many times, you know, to say, you know, over 100 times, I think would be an understatement. And I'm a huge fan of the original movie. I'm a fan of the whole franchise, but, you know, I think we talked about this before. There is no other horror franchise that has as high a highs and as low a lows probably as the Halloween franchise. So like, I came in with, you know, moderate expectations, saw it in the theaters, and just walked out like on cloud nine. Just loved it. I'm not a perfect movie. I definitely sense some of those tonal things because I'm always sensitive to the idea of like, I don't want Michael Myers to be like a cool badass killing machine that you want to root for, like a Jason Voorhees in, you know, in you know, one of the later Friday the 13th movies or something like that. I like that he is this like, you know, purely evil killing machine, and there's always like a mystery element, and you get into that a little bit in Halloween Kills too, of like his motivations and what's in his head, and that is always like the nagging question throughout the series, and I like and dislike them trying to explain that in various ways. And some people are like, no, don't try to explain Michael, he's a killing machine, all that stuff. And it's like, I think you can delve into that stuff without being super heavy handed like a Rob Zombie type of thing. But I absolutely loved the 2018 movie. So when I walked out of the theaters just absolutely on cloud nine, loving it. And, you know, when I started to see that the opinions around it were pretty split, I was really, and this is kind of stupid, it's frankly a little bit embarrassing to say, I think I've mentioned it before, like I didn't rewatch the 2018 version until this week because I was worried that it wouldn't age as well as I kind of had hoped. And I know that's really stupid, but like I feel like as a kid, you know, I was kind of almost like traumatized by H2O because I really loved H2O when I first watched it in 2018, and then I kind of learned to hate it, and then I've since come back around on it and feel, you know, and I do enjoy the movie. So I feel like I was worried that's what was going to happen with 2018, and it's not like I actively avoided it, it's just I did not actively go out and kind of try to rewatch it. So I rewatched 2018 this week, and I gotta say, for me, it really held up. I really, really like the 2018 movie. It's not perfect. Like I said, there's jumps from the tone throughout this franchise. So I guess that's something that like I probably have a little bit of Stockholm syndrome with this franchise where it's like I'm used to being built up and knocked down, and I've kind of learned to love that and appreciate like all the crazy tonal shifts with this franchise. But I just felt like this movie, the 2018 version, just just really held up for me in a lot of ways, and it nailed the smallish feel of Michael. You know what I mean? And like his ability to just like wreak havoc in this kind of like micro environment and the ripple effects of that, and then the complete I guess like shift in mentality of Laurie from the first film from 78 the whole way, obviously, because this was a continuation of that. I don't know, I just kind of I really appreciate it. Again, by no means perfect, but it really held up for me in a lot of ways.
So for me, something that happened in that in between time between watching 2018 the first time and rewatching it this week is that I had went back and rewatched most of the other Halloween films, including like that 4, 5, and 6,
like the Thorn trilogy.
I rewatched the Thorn trilogy, and I rewatched H2O, and I rewatched Resurrection.
So you got, in comparison, you were like, well, this is pretty damn good compared to
absolutely
compared to 4, 5, and 6.
I didn't rewatch the Rob Zombie ones, but I did rewatch all those other ones, and it's just now rewatching 2018, those small little things that like those small things that bothered me, like the fact that like all three of the male kids in 2018 are basically just the same actor 3 times.
They were pretty. It was hard to tell them apart. They were all pretty inconsequential characters for the most part.
They're all inconsequential. They all like just curly-haired mop-headed idiots, and it's just But those things became a lot smaller. And then the other thing that I kind of reframed for myself, I don't know how true it is, but it reframed for myself, is I really, really hated that doctor character in 2018.
The Sartain character.
I really hated him. And then I just kind of reframed it in my mind as like, but what if it's just a meta joke? That like this is that we tried to recast a Loomis, and like he would be the evil Loomis and all that. And like it even comes out like Laurie says it like on the nose. Oh, so you're the new Loomis. So it comes more off like a meta joke in a way, that they're like, oh, he's the new Loomis and he's the evil doctor, and then they kill him, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. You would kill off the thing that that's something the audience would hate. The audience would hate a new Loomis. So
no, I could see that. I think it was like, there was definitely a tongue-in-cheek element to the Sartain character in the first. That's his name, right? I'm saying that right. It was Sartain, wasn't it, Dr. Sartain? It was something like that. If not, it was darn close. But you know what I'm talking about. I think, it was definitely a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I feel like it was one of those devices that was there to set up a twist kind of thing. And I think it was also, it was kind of this necessary device and now it makes more sense, although we'll get into it. I'm not super keen on how they tied him in or how they kind of rationalized his existence in Halloween Kills. But the whole idea was, it makes why he just came in, did this, and then is out, kind of made more sense from like from a script and a story perspective. But it kind of almost became a little bit more lazy in my mind in Halloween Kills. But in any case, I mean, he was really the means by which to bring Michael and Laurie back together, right? That was really why he existed. But I know a lot of people were really split on the whole, like that whole character. I think also like if his voice wasn't as gravelly and super dramatic, I think that might have helped a little bit. It's just kind of like how the podcasters in the first one were just like basically an exposition robot, what I mean? But they also were set up as kill fodder. Like they were definitely set up in the trailer to be not want to say main characters, but they were definitely set up that they were going to be a bigger part of the story, and then they were dispatched in pretty short order. And I think I always appreciate when a movie does that, like kills off who you think is going to be a main character, because I think we talked about it I forget what episode we talked about this in, but it kind of like ups the stakes for me. And it just like, I love that idea that like anyone can die at any time kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just, lends a level of unpredictability, but personal preference. Any other thoughts on 2018? Like things you liked, things you didn't like things that were weighing heavy on your brain coming into this one?
I feel like even after rewatching 2018 and just kind of getting mentally prepared is like, and then seeing the new one, that like I feel like the development of that film, like almost in a way, I think like could stand alone on its own no matter what. And I feel like it could tell its own story. And I'm trying to like talk about it, but not try to say exactly what I think about Halloween Kills. But like I enjoyed that it felt like the story was full. It felt like things were actually happening, where in a little ways I felt like with the new one, sometimes there was like a lot of recap. There's a lot of commentary. And so I really kind of appreciated that aspect of it. You know, we got to see where Laurie was today, you know, at that time, you know, setting up her house, protecting herself. And like, you got to watch the drama that she was experiencing from all the years and stuff like that. So that was another thought I had on it and appreciated about the last one.
No, I we're right on. Before we jump into, we got a couple of housekeeping thingies to touch on before we actually get into the meat of the topic, which is, of course, Halloween Kills. First and foremost, we've got an announcement about our November episode, our November Showdown episode. A lot of you helped us decide, voted on the Instagrams, on Twitter, for what our topic will be for the November Showdown episode. So we appreciate that. And as always, if you care to do that, if you want to suggest topics to us, if you want to vote when we put that out there to help us decide what those topics are going to be for Showdown episodes, or if you just want to engage with us and see some spooky, wooky content and silly memes and all types of things that we post on the social medias, go ahead and give us a follow over at Halloween is Forever on Instagram, at Hallow Forever on Twitter, Halloween is Forever Podcast on Facebook, Halloween is Forever Pod on the old TikToks. Again, have not reopened TikTok yet. Still feeling the emotional reverberations of my last endeavor on TikTok, which lasted about 4 minutes. Still shook. Have not revisited. Very scared of it. And of course, Halloween is Forever Pod at gmail.com. You can send us emails if you feel like it. But the three topics, I will remind you from last time around, the options that were selected from our running list of suggested topics from ourselves and from listeners and social media friends and all those sorts of things. We picked three of them at random. The first one was werewolf flicks. Number 2 was haunted house movies. And then number 3 was a topic that we affectionately refer to as Little Monsters, which was anything with kind of tiny baddies in it, gremlins and munchies and ghoulies and all those sorts of things. It's funny how my number 2 right after a giant iconic franchise like Gremlins, well, not a huge franchise, it's two movies, but very well-known movies, I originally go straight to Munchies. Like that's my second one I think of. Not Critters, not Ghoulies, not even Puppet Master, it's Munchies, because of one line really, which is if you know that movie, we're the Munchies. That's my favorite line in the entire movie.
That's funny.
An aside, but surprisingly, for me at least, the winner by not a landslide but a commanding victory was haunted houses.
Boom,
so our
boom.
topic for the month of November will be haunted houses, which we've already mentioned. We really need to define some parameters around what a haunted house movie is.
I think first parameter is it has to be a house.
Yeah, it can't be, because there are like some some people when they talk about a movie like even like the third act of Halloween 1978, you know what I mean? You're walking through and Laurie is kind of walking through the house and discovering her dead friends and stuff like that. Like some people refer to that as like, like that act is like a haunted house sequence, you know what I mean? And that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about legit ass old spooky mansions.
Also, no ghost ship.
No ghost ship.
No
Okay,
ghost
can't
ship.
be a house. Can't be a house. That's a cruise ship.
Yeah.
That is not a house. That is an ocean liner.
But it could
Don't
be a
fuck
house
around.
boat.
It could be a house.
If you can
boat.
find a haunted houseboat movie, all the more power to you. I'll give you
Just
bonus
trying to break
points.
it down because, a house is a home, and
Right.
I'm about to make some shit up.
So somebody has to live there. So it can be.
I'm just trying to defend that my camper is my house, so that's really what
Yeah.
So
it's
Somebody
haunted.
has to live there. It has to be like
Does
an
it-
apartment or a house, but like no factories, no ghost ships, no haunted McDonald's.
No planets that may or may not be called Mars.
That's right.
He is not over this.
I never will be. I'm scarred for life. Here's a question, though. Does it have to be a ghost doing the hunt?
Are we talking Scooby-Doo shit?
Other super... Well, listen, there's plenty of... There's ghost abound in Scooby-Doo. But I'm saying... let me think of an example. This is not a great example, but I'm immediately thinking of a movie like a Cellar Dweller, or a movie like
Oh my God.
People Under the Stairs. Where there's like some supernatural-ish. People Under the Stairs isn't really supernatural, but you get what I mean. Let's say there's a creature in the house.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna say.
Terrorvision. There's a good example. Something like Terrorvision.
Ooh, Terrorvision is kind. That's
That's an alien mutant
Right.
type thing, if I recall.
See, I think it has to stay like ghost and or demon.
Yeah.
It has to be
I would
ethereal.
appreciate.
Yeah.
Yes, ethereal. I
Ethereal.
like that. No, I would agree, and I was looking for a word to kind of pin on it because I don't want to necessarily just say ghost. And if you say supernatural, that could be a big old creature.
Right.
So yes, it has to be ethereal.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because like Insidious, they have
Yeah.
actual ghosts in it, but
Yeah.
then there's like that other fucking thing with the red face, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a spirit of a person,
It's like a demon.
right? But it's some sort of
something like
demon,
that.
and it lives in between dimensions. So I
Yeah.
think anything that kind of is like that is
Mhm.
good. Like Poltergeist has all kinds of spirits, but
Yeah.
also like not necessarily connected to people, but it,
Sure.
yeah.
A 13 Ghosts would certainly be an appropriate film.
Mhm.
I do not think anybody here is standing 13 Ghosts, although
I don't know.
I love me some Matthew Lillard, and I love me
Honestly,
some Tony
I was thinking
Shalhoub.
about that movie. I was like, because I recently, it was either like on TV or something, and I watched a little bit of it. And I was like, man, this movie scared the fuck out of me when I was younger.
Me too. Yeah, it has. I just watched it not that long ago. Listen, I'm here for Shannon Elizabeth. I'm here for Matthew Lillard. I'm here for Tony Shalhoub. It's just, there's got to be some better options out there.
ghost
there's
designs-
about 40 Korean movies that are way, way better than that.
The ghost designs definitely hold up a lot better.
Yes,
Then-
those are pretty.
yeah.
The Jackal and all those. Those are great.
that was
but-
always such a cool thing, and then there was always like a whole bunch of backstory to all those, and it's just the movie itself.
Yeah, no, I'm not picking. I actually like that movie. Okay, but boy, there's just such a. There's so much '90s jump cut, shaky, giving me a headache type of editing in that movie. But that's not the topic today, guys. We're not talking about 13 Ghosts. Give it a rest. We're talking about Halloween Kills. Before we jump into that, does anybody have any beers that they're drinking? I know I'm drinking a beer.
I'm drinking a beer.
I am definitely drinking a beer.
Meg, go ahead, because we know what beer you're drinking.
Well, I started out like before even.
You damn trash bird over there.
Well, I know I started out the day being like, "Hey, send us the Zoom information," and I'm like, "Hey, I have to shotgun a beer real fast, and I'll be right there." So
Yeah.
I was leaving Halloween Kills, and I was like, "You know what? I want some beer for when I get home." I stopped at the old Speedway, and selection isn't great, but I caught this, Natty Light. But it's called Natural Fright, and I could not resist.
Yeah.
So I am
Yeah.
slamming them. I do have a more respectable option for my second beer, but you know what?
Yeah.
I'm like here for it. I pulled out my tahine, And so I'm eating it or drinking it with that. So, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling great.
That's a dramatic improvement. That is a great way to improve, otherwise not particularly great beer is a nice way of putting it. But I do like how you describe that 12-pack as you caught a 12-pack, like you caught a cold or a murder rap or something. Like I caught a 12-pack.
I think that was just me mumbling, and I said I got it. But I like how you interpreted it as I caught it. Like I'm going fishing.
I caught a 12-pack. Yeah, hey, I walked in the Speedway to get a roller dog, and I accidentally caught a 12-pack of Natty Light. That'll happen from time to time.
I gone fishing. I caught a Natty Light.
I caught a boot full of Natty Light.
That's very appropriate for this beer, though.
Yeah. Is it spookier than your normal Natty Light?
Is it green?
I'd say so. I mean, this is the first Natty Light that I've ever bought in my entire life, and I'm not lying when I say that. So I don't hate it.
You've lived a charmed existence. You have lived an absolutely charmed existence.
I don't know. I've definitely drank America. Before, so I think I've done worse. No, I actually like the design on the can. It's like a darker, like black design with this like haunted house with this graveyard, which, mind you, the coffins are standing up, and that doesn't make sense. But I'll post a picture.
Yep. Listen, sometimes you got to get into some Natty Lights. Listen, I've been there. Steve, what do you got?
I have something decidedly less spooky, but it is the Ultra Genius Dahl, DAHL, as in Roald Dahl, because it is a peach chipotle saison. So James and the Giant Peach.
Fancy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. It's all right.
That's cool.
It's all right. Not knocking your socks off.
I was going to ask, how do you feel about that brewery? I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, it's better than what Ambridge used to have, which was basically nothing.
All right, so it's better than nothing. I like your Yelp review there, bud.
Yeah. Ambridge was for a long time a bunch of, as far as I could tell, a bunch of drug fronts, because every bar was cash only.
Oh shit!
I will say though, there's one bar, Harks, and Harks used to do like 22-ounce plastic cups of Pumpkin and 2X IPA for like $7.
That's really fucked up. It immediately reminds me of the time that I probably didn't drink too much, but it was enough that I was driving home from Southern Tier and like had to stop and vomit like less than a mile from the brewery. Because I think about Pumpkin and I'm like, nope, it's just that beer too. It's just like so fucking sweet. You have two and you're like, I'm sick.
Well, yeah, Harks used to, I haven't been there in a long time, but Harks used to do you up pretty good with craft beer for really on the cheap.
Well, I am drinking an old standby of mine, probably the beer I drink, probably more of than anything on a pretty consistent basis, which is Pilsner Kel. Of course, the
fancy boy.
The Czech classic here, out of an appropriate Pilsner Kel half-liter mug as well, which I have way too many pieces of Pilsner Kel glassware. But they recently kind of refreshed their packaging, and I just couldn't resist. I stumbled upon a fresh case and the new packaging. They went back to like the old style bottle.
I like that.
Rather than the stubby one. It's very regal in nature, but they did brown glass. So it's basically a very similar shape to the old green bottles, but brown, which is obviously preferable from a light struck perspective, or protecting from light strike. So
I don't know if I told you, when I was in Detroit, I was at this really crazy cool dive bar next to the tattoo shop I went to. And I got a Pilsner Kel there. And actually, he was just like, I said I wanted a light beer, and he was like, well, we have Pilsner Kel. And I was like, oh, well, like, what's the date on it? And he was like, well, we just got it. And so immediately it was just like, that doesn't tell me anything. But it was dated for like April 2022. So I was like, cool. And it was really great. It was delicious.
Yeah, no, that's pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Especially for an import, so you're in probably pretty good shape there. They don't do the year out code dates like some other imports, which is good. It's like 6 months or 8 months or something like that. So I think that's the same time frame that was on this case I just bought. So
Sick.
Tasting pretty dang good. All right, let's jump into this flick. So first of all, I should say spoilers abound. So if you have not seen the movie, if you're planning on seeing the movie and you don't want anything spoiled for you, this is your fair warning. We are going to spoil the absolute ever-loving shit out of Halloween Kills 2021. So here is your final warning on that. That said, I don't know we necessarily go through, the whole kind of plot and everything, but, kind of what I was thinking was, because I imagine a lot of people who are going to be listening to this are people who have just seen it, and, want to get some of their opinions either validated or contradicted, or just kind of get a feel for how other people feel about it. And, I always love to go see these, which last night didn't have this opportunity. I went solo, but I love to have a discussion about a movie the second I walk out of the theater, the second I get done watching it. I'm always like hungry to like voice my opinion and hear other people's opinions like right after I watch the movie. And I went by myself last night, so it really wasn't an option, but it was funny because so many people I think share that same feeling. I walked out and immediately like just struck up a completely organic conversation with like 3 other people, literally as we're walking through the lobby. Like everyone's talking, like, what do you think? What do you think? And everyone's just looking at each other, just waiting for people to talk to each other. And the guy was like, it was this guy with looked like with, a couple, and they were like, what did you think? And then, so we started immediately talking, and then I ended up standing on the sidewalk outside the theater before we went to our cars, talking to these 3 people for probably a good like 5 minutes on the call, or I mean on the film. So I imagine a lot of people are looking for that same level of catharsis and that sort of thing. So I figured we'd kind of focus on like what we really liked about it, what we didn't like. Of course, some of the plot elements and story elements and scenes and stuff will kind of come up organically there. And then just kind of maybe some like question marks or like things we're still kind of like uncertain on or not sure how to feel about. I know for me, when I see a movie, I know that I need to let it marinate for for a couple of days before I really kind of feel the way I want to, I feel about it, like to kind of sink in. But so first impression, the movie ends, the credits roll. What were your thoughts on this one?
So we already talked about how 2018 had those tonal problems. And I immediately was like, well, this doesn't have any tonal problems because it's all pretty bleak all the way through.
Sure.
The other thing that really stood out to me is, holy shit, how good is the score in this movie?
The score is killer. I mean, the score in 2018 was incredible. This one's right there with it. It's just, it's really, really, it just adds so much. Like, they always have the old story about the 78 version when they screened it for people before release, without the movie or without the score, I mean, or with an early version of the score, I guess. It literally like got laughs. And then you add the score and people are passing out and pissing themselves, So it's just it's always been such a big part of the franchise. So they did not disappoint in that capacity. Yeah. Anything else?
I think I initially was just kind of like, man, I feel like there was a lot, like if we're talking just about initial reaction, there are things that I did like about it, but there was probably more I wasn't a super huge fan of, but I didn't want to have too concrete of an opinion besides just the things I liked and disliked before talking to you guys. Cause I was like, these guys might put certain things into perspective for me, but we can go and dive into the things I liked and didn't like after that. But
yeah, my initial thought, I walked out, not in love with the movie, frankly. I mean, definitely not anywhere in my mind, at least. Like my initial reaction, again, this is a gut reaction. This can kind of change over time as I've apt to do with my opinions on movies, especially within the first 24, 48 hours of seeing it. I just walked out like, I'm glad I saw it. I had fun with it, but in my mind, it was a big drop off from the way I felt, after walking out of the 2018 movie. And I feel like my expectations were a lot lower for this one. 2018,
Really?
I mixed expectations, but they really exceeded my expectations, that film. This one, I went in with relatively low expectations because I really didn't like the trailer. Really tempered my expectations, especially the firefighter, fucking beat 'em up scene. It's like Streets of Rage, but with Michael Myers and firefighters.
Brian,
Like I really.
I had a question for you about your experience. Was there actually a lot of like communal laughing that went on?
There were a few chuckles here and there, for sure. Not a ton. There wasn't any, because it wasn't a packed house.
Okay.
Like in my experience, those types of things really come to the forefront, either because you have a really vocal, group of people who kind of give everyone the license to like speak up, or it's a packed house. Like that's the only time I really see that a ton. And I wasn't in a packed house at all. It was just kind of like couples. Like there was one group of 3 that was like way up in the back. Everyone else was just like singles or couples. So it wasn't a real active audience in my experience, but there were some chuckles. There were some, there were a few of those things.
I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on some of the fun, like parts that kind of came off as funny, but my experience was like, because I think you hit it on the nose that there were so many people at my showing that when there were those humor moments, I was just like off put that I'm like at this horror movie, but there's so much laughing and you don't really necessarily go into a Halloween movie thinking that it's going to have this comedy element to it, which threw me off for this one.
I remember watching the 2018 movie and it was in a packed house on opening night, like literally sold out. And I remember the young kid, I don't remember the actor's name, but the kid getting babysat.
Oh, yeah. He was
the
cute.
comedy.
Okay.
He was the comic. I remember him getting a ton of laughs.
Yeah, he was cute.
And then being a couple of other elements there. But like, again, I didn't see it in that environment this time. So yeah, overall, I mean, in summation, I walked out not feeling particularly good about it and was kind of... we'll get into some of the specifics, but my first impression was not particularly strong. And of the the other 3 people that I talked about, that I talked to walking out of the theater, they were like, "What the fuck was that?" Like they were mad. They actually walked out like angry, not angry, but just like, well, that was fucking trash. Like the one guy, I mean, this one guy was kind of a little bit of like a meathead type of guy. So he, I don't know if I'm not saying his opinion was void by any means, but just like, yeah, he was just like, that was fucking bullshit, bro. Like, I was like, all right, I can see why you think that. But so what are some of the things that you like? So I should probably set up a little bit about it, and we can kind of go through just like the big chunks of the movie. But like the first thing that you get introduced in is it picks up immediately after the same evening, obviously picks up right afterwards with the boyfriend character, which his name, I didn't write down his name.
It's probably
but, Allison's
Tad.
Boyfriend. Tad or Todd or Chad or Chode. Yeah, I mean it was probably not Chode, but it was Allison's kind of love interest, right? And he kind of stumbles across Officer Hawkins, and boy, you're off and running. So the thing I did like right off the bat is like they throw you right back into the mix right off the bat. Some of that building stuff that was obviously a big part of the first movie isn't really a big element in this movie. It jumps right into it, right? So that's like, I mean, it really had a lot of things in common with the original 1981 Halloween 2 in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. How did you feel about the way, because I felt like that structure didn't work for me, because it starts, I'm good with starting right where we picked up off. Yeah. But I felt like almost they should have started with the firefighter scene to just really get things off and running. Yeah. And then go to Chode and Hawkins to like set up the flashback, because what we get to is a flashback to 1978. Yeah. And I just felt it like that, like that scene has a lot of explanation, and it has a lot of obvious emotional impact and backstory for the Hawkins character.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know, it doesn't move quickly enough, I think, for as fast as you just want some action, like straight out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
No, I definitely agree. I think the one thing that I think for me, and this is just selfishly, I would have liked to have seen that firefighter scene right off the bat as well, because then you're like, because they showed it in the trailer and they showed you everything pretty much in the trailer. There was really almost nothing else of impact in that scene that wasn't really showcased in the trailer. So like, to get that out of the way, because you know it's coming, I think would have been nice. Otherwise, it would have been a really surprising, cool scene if they wouldn't have shown it in the trailer. And that's more of a commentary on, like, you know, the modern, you know, kind of film promotion and the way that there's so many spoilers in the trailers all the time. But either that, or I guess the only other option would have been to start with some of the flashback stuff from 78, but you really did need to revisit for the audience who Hawkins was and what his role in the first movie was. And that's obviously, you know, the direction they ended up going. But yeah, I agree. They could have went with that first, and probably would have worked better in my opinion. But
yeah, I felt like, I guess I felt with that, like, in certain ways, the callbacks and just like the revisiting of the history, I liked it, but I also just felt it was awkwardly put in. That was how I felt when watching it.
Yeah, it's like when you have something that picks up directly after the last movie let off, and it's almost like it's one big script, one big continuing script. It's always, not always, it is quite often, I find, you know, awkward the way they dip you back into the story. You know what I mean? Because it's like the question always becomes, how much explanation of the first movie are you going to have? Like, how much do you want someone who did not see the first movie to feel comfortable or be lost? You know what I mean? Like, how much are you going to hold those people's hands?
That was gonna be my question for you guys, is that I didn't know, when we're looking at like some films, that maybe if they like called back so far that if someone was coming in and they'd never seen a horror movie, they could walk into this one and just understand what was going on. You know, that's kind of also how it felt. And I was like, I already saw it. I just watched it. You know, like, why would, you know, so coming from the other side, I was like, man, this isn't working against you. But I could see how, if they're trying to pull more people in, how it could work for you.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, they kind of didn't make a decision either way. You either have to go like Halloween 2, like the original Halloween 2, where they show you essentially the end of the first movie, and then get into it, or they just pick up where you left off and the audience is left to sink or swim. And they really didn't do either. They kind of like waffled in the middle a little bit. Because
they do have like a flashback sequence when Laurie, Karen, and Allison get to the hospital. There's a small flashback to them like locking Michael in the basement, but I think even at that point you already seen him escape. So that was just kind of a pointless edit, I think.
Yeah. So you go from there, and then you start to transition, like I said, into pretty early on this flashback to 1978, and it is essentially Hawkins and it's essentially how Michael got captured on Halloween night 1978. You know, after he's killed, you know, Annie and Bob and everyone, you know, and they end up, you know, they kind of show like Sheriff Brackett, you know, like discovering Annie's or identifying Annie's body, I guess, or whatever. And it's kind of the small scale manhunt that's happening around Haddonfield. And it's a bunch of these like young green cops hunting around town on foot and in cars. And you're introduced to Hawkins and his partner, which I don't remember his name, but it's kind of inconsequential anyway. And then you have Lonnie, which the only reason you'd ever remember Lonnie from the first 1978 movie is Loomis's famous line where they are daring each other to walk up to the steps of the Meyer house, and Loomis is hiding in the bushes, and he does the whole hey Lonnie, get your ass away from there, when he goes up. So this is Lonnie all grown up, but in this movie, but you do get that snapshot of Lonnie like on his way home having a run-in-ish with Michael, but then him kind of like either sparing him or just ignoring him, and then him being saved by the cops. Long story short, they go back to the house, and I really appreciate, this is probably one of, if not probably my second favorite part of the movie, is the 78 flashback stuff. Not only does I thought Michael looked awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just feel like he encompassed the shape from the original movie. You also get I'm sure a CGI touched up Donald Pleasance-ish type of stand-in.
Yeah, I wanted to know what you thought about that.
From a distance, it was great, but then when you saw him close up, you're like, ooh, he kind of looks like Captain Lou Albano a little bit or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just had this like old Italian uncle kind of look to him for a second. I don't know why. He just, but for when you first saw him from a distance, I was like, oh man, like he just has the posture of Loomis. Yeah. He just feels like he encompassed him. But when you see it a little closer up, it's a little uncanny valley.
Yeah, at first you just hear like audio clips because you see like the cops circling the house, and you hear Loomis audio clips. But then he shows up at the bottom of the stairs with Hawkins, and it's like, oh, they're doing something kind of like Star Wars did with that Grand Moff Tarkin. And I'm like, but it didn't look as bad as that. So
no, it wasn't anywhere nearly as bad as that. I think it would have been a lot more acceptable if they would have just kept it a little bit pulled out.
Right.
But I didn't have a problem with it personally. But then you do go upstairs. And I do like the attention to detail. Not just is there the carcass of the dog that apparently Michael has eaten for sustenance, but also even the attention to detail on the gutter that has collapsed and that broke the window that inspired the Donald Pleasance to pull out his revolver in the first movie when talking to Sheriff Brackett. So there's a lot of attention to detail there. These two green cops get attacked by Michael. One of them is being strangled. Sheriff Brackett's character, Hawkins, and his partner are there. His partner is being strangled. Hawkins is kind of panicking. Michael is in front of him, and it's one of those classic, like, take the shot, hostage situation almost types of things. Yeah. And he accidentally shoots his partner in the throat, I think.
Yeah, shoots him right in the neck.
Pretty much.
Yeah, which is really almost worst case scenario. I mean, you didn't do the worst possible thing. You didn't shoot him through the eye or some shit, but boy, you really bumbled that one up there.
I feel like
Officer
to really
Hawkins,
feel cavalier to make that shot, you have to know you're a good shot, and I just don't think he was.
Well, no, he proves he wasn't a good shot because after he shoots his partner, Michael takes off. And he misses 3 more shots at Michael with no, hostage.
As he's just casually walking. He's just like a brisk walk.
Yeah, I immediately thought of the scene from Blazing Saddles where he's like, look at this, steady as a rock. And he's like, yeah, but I shoot with this hand. He comes in with the shaky hand. Like that's I was like, Hawkins is Gene Wilder's character from that movie. He just he proves himself to be not the most effective cop in the world. And his partner dies, there on the floor in Judith Meyer's old room.
I would like to see a parody video of like Michael Myers walking out of that with just a middle finger behind him as he
peace out. He just slides off camera.
Bye.
And he has the opportunity to either chase Michael or tend to his dying partner, which he obviously does the latter. Eventually, and you don't get this right away, but you do get a flashback later on and you learn that Michael, as they went outside, the cavalry was approaching, and Michael, was kind of surrounded outside by cops. And then, another officer came up behind the head and just, beat the hell out of his head with a billy club, took him down. Loomis was there ready to just execute Michael right on the front lawn with his revolver, and Hawkins came in and saved him. So you learn this later, and this is meant to be a little bit of like an emotional payoff and or kind of catharsis for Laurie, because Laurie believes that she, let him escape, and then has created these, decades of trauma throughout the town. But then Hawkins kind of says like, no, it was my fault. Loomis was going to end it. And I didn't, I stopped him, for whatever reason. So, again, that's jumping forward a little bit, but that's kind of the importance of that scene, really. That's how it comes full circle. But how about Michael? Like the mask, the performance, like how did you guys kind of feel about that?
That's great, like all around.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the one thing that stands out about both 2018 and this is just because they have the original actor Nick Castle for occasional things, but then the new guy who does most of the physical work, I believe, is just he's on point. Like
James Jude Courtney, I think is his name. Yeah,
I liked how
his
the mask
physicality is great.
Yeah, I liked even how the mask, it like has this age character to it, and then just kind of keeps growing and changing as like he's experiencing. So I kind of liked that too. But yeah, no, I my takeaway was he was on point.
Yeah, honestly, I think he is, even in the stalking type scenes, whether it be the scene in the park later or whatever. Like he just frankly. The scene, the long sequence of following behind him in the 2018 movie is for me one of the most iconic scenes in the entire franchise. It's so great. I just think he's definitely the most threatening Michael Myers of the franchise. So and he doesn't let down this one.
I think like in a lot of ways he's not trying to play Michael Myers or not trying to play any other slasher. Feels like he's playing a Terminator, which is it's just walk, kill, move on.
Unfeeling, unyielding, unfeeling type of thing. I like that because then when Michael makes decisions, then you can get into, okay, why did he do that? You know what I mean? Because that's the whole mystique and the whole mystery around the Halloween franchise is why Michael does anything. You know what I mean?
You know what
Because
question I really have after this one is though, why can't Michael ever fucking die?
Yeah, that's because there's another movie. Come on. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was the most frustrating. Anywho, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anywho.
No, and that's why, honestly, this is sounds like pedantic, and this is like fanboy, like toxic fan base type of stuff. I don't want to make it sound worse than it is, but like I remember I loved H2O because Michael fucking died at the end. Like it was 20 years later, after all of this shit, blah blah blah. Jamie Lee Curtis kills Michael Myers.
Except she doesn't.
I know, but that's so fucking dumb. That's why I hated everything after that for a long, long time, is like you got this unexpected, super ballsy, just like, you know what? Fuck it. She kills his ass. You know what I mean? We're going to blindside you with this, like, the ultimate thing is Michael going to kill Laurie? Is Laurie going to kill Michael? No, Laurie fucking kills Michael. Here's your answer. You have closure. You have an answer. Right. And then, of course, they the most clumsy, retcon of that ever, obviously, in the next movie. But it was just in Resurrection. But it was just like, I loved that. And I knew that wasn't going to come in this movie because it's a middle movie in the trilogy, but I almost in the back of my mind had like a little bit of a hope that maybe they did it. They threw you a big old curveball, and then the last movie was like some sort of divergent storyline that had to do with Michael, you know what I mean, or something like that. But it didn't come.
Wait, but can you clarify something for me? You just said something about this, like, so between the 2018 and this one, are they already planning that there was going to be 3 of them? Yeah. Okay, I think I missed that, which is great because I literally felt like this was a stepping stone movie. I like so little happened that I was like, this can't be it, Right. And that's why I walked away being like, Michael's just never going to die. And I don't think they're going to end it on the next one. I'm going to.
Well, it's called Halloween Ends.
Yeah, yeah. The last movie is called
that.
Halloween Ends. So, so here's the thing. It's funny. It's not going to end. The one thing I know is it's not going to end. The movie's called Halloween Ends. Oh, okay.
No, I just don't believe it. I think they're going to lie to me. I literally don't think that they're going to do it.
They might. But it's weird because knowing this was a middle movie in the trilogy made my expectations much lower. And I think it did suffer from the middle movie in a trilogy symptoms, which is it needs to explain the first movie, but it also needs to set up the next movie. And that is a fucking hard thing to be that bridge.
And honestly, we talked about it a little bit, but like I was getting Halloween 5 flashbacks. Not in all the other ways that Halloween 5 is a piece of shit, but
yeah,
like nothing really happens in Halloween 5 either. Like they spend a lot of time talking about the Thorn cult, and there's a lot of time setting up what happened after 4, but nothing really happens. One of my big notes that I have written down is did they plan a trilogy, or did they write a 2.5 hour film realizing nobody's going to sit through 2.5 hours of Halloween, no producer is going to allow that, and so they made 2 films and padded out one of them.
You might be right because I mean that's certainly what Halloween 2018 felt like, a fully fleshed out film though, and this didn't for me.
I was going to ask you guys what your perspective was on all of the nostalgic callbacks to like original characters, and see if this is something that you guys have seen in other trilogies or other series, because I felt like it was just so forced that they're like, hey, like kind of what you're talking about where they're trying to pad it, like, oh, what can we do to make this one a little bit more interesting? Let's bring back characters and start talking about them, because that'll get the people who initially watched the movie back in 1978 to be interested in this one, and it gives us something else to do, because I just don't feel like they did a lot with those like throwbacks. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Tommy Doyle was a big part of this movie, and like, so I have mixed feelings because I like Haddonfield as a world. You know what I mean? And I do like the small town, and I think they were onto something strong with the whole idea, with this whole like message of the enemy isn't Michael Myers, the enemy is fear kind of thing. And but it just feels like they were kind of ham-fisted and kind of fart smelling. You know, they kind of were sniffing their own farts a little bit with it.
I was also even thinking about the like in it was early on in the movie where they're at the bar and it's Lonnie and he's like calling out the other 2 women that were, you know, that those are the type of characters I'm talking about. Like the ones that like they killed off really early. I'm like, why the fuck are they even here to do anything? Because it's like they're in and out. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it was a clumsy, weird scene. So Lonnie was one of the kids who picked on Tommy to a certain extent when he was little, and then also was one of the, you know, little dick kids who went up and was, you know, trying to sneak into the Meyer house. Lindsay was the woman that Annie Brackett's character was babysitting in the first movie, and then of course Tommy Doyle was the kid that Laurie was babysitting. Before we go any further, anybody spot who played Lonnie? We watched in somebody recently. Lonnie, who was kind of like this, you know, the stoner guy, the dad of the love interest kind of guy.
He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him.
He was Joe Colley from Midnight Mass.
Oh,
Robert
okay.
Longstreet.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the you know the local, you know he's the alcoholic guy who shot the girl in the spine and stuff in Midnight Mass. But in any case, I like that they use these people to flesh out Haddonfield and do the world building aspect of it. 2 things I had a problem with there, and of course, and Nurse Chambers, right? She's a recurring character. She was there the night Michael escaped in '78 with Loomis in the car and all that stuff. I liked that stuff well enough. I would have liked more if they just were like happened to be all hanging out at a community event, not we get together every Halloween to
Right.
bring people down and bum people out at the bar, with our trauma and stuff like
Bum
that.
out all the younger locals and people who maybe moved into the neighborhood, and they're like, what the hell did I get into?
I really didn't know. This was something tonally that I kind of had an issue with, is like, so Anthony Michael Hall, played Tommy Doyle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was trying to make the Tommy Doyle character into something that the writers and directors, I don't know about the directing, but like, I feel like he was trying to play a different character than what the story was trying to tell. Was the idea, I think, was supposed to be like this guy who thinks he's doing good and is not, right. He's fueling the fear and fueling the fire and all this kind of unrest within the community because of his like this headstrong mentality of like, I am going to deliver some sort of righteous justice.
Yeah.
And he was meant to be a bad guy, who to a certain extent, right? But I think Anthony Michael Hall thought he was playing this like badass like Negan type character. Right. Like he definitely wanted to be more of an action hero badass. He felt like it was like he was trying to be Ray Liotta or something like that.
That's
you know what
a better,
I mean?
yeah, a Ray Liotta type is a lot better.
Yeah, instead of being the inciting mob dickhead.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was purposely more ambiguous that like he's not a villain per se, because the villain-isness is supposed to be Michael, like,
of course, yeah.
And so they're not trying to do like a double twist like they did in 2018 where like, oh, and also the doctor was a villain. I think this was much more of, we're trying to keep it ambiguous, and obviously the overall story, we move from that generational trauma to like within a family to like what does that look like when it affects an entire community. It's like, that's the expanding, and I really like that part about this film, is like, let's expand it to the community now. What does it look like when it affects everybody? So I think that's why all of these characters in the town all have like these scales of gray, and obviously there's a reflective amount to what is going on in our own society, and you can read it however you want to. So that's why I feel like, I don't know, I liked Anthony Michael Hall in this. I liked the way he played it. I just he didn't bug me at all. I got what he was going for, and it ends appropriately for him, but it didn't.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that side of it. I'm definitely open, and I'm eager to see kind of how I feel upon a second watch. But just for whatever reason, something about that performance rubbed me the wrong way, where he was trying to be just, I don't know, the grabbing old hickory, and he was just trying to be. I don't know why it felt like. Maybe the ambiguity is what made me feel uncomfortable with that character. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's like almost this like reactive element, but I actually, that was one of my thoughts, like what you mentioned with like, I feel like in ways this movie could like definitely capitalize that they could take advantage mildly of some sort of social commentary that could exist. And like I said, I'll let people also interpret it as they need to, but it really had that feel of when fear is in the picture, and you have this overwhelming perspective on things, it can make people do insane things that from the outside, when you're trying just to scream and like, hey, this is not what's actually happening. But I think we're talking about Doyle for that Anthony Michael Hall character. I got mad at him a bit because I felt like he almost had this like logical sense, and then you just couldn't fully take him seriously the rest of the movie because he was kind of part of this like irrational mob that wasn't listening and was just acting off of fear.
Yeah.
And
well, he kind of started a flame, like he sparked a flame that he then couldn't control.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of
Absolutely.
thing.
And then like you also like you feel like not bad, but you kind of sympathize in the way that there's a scene, where they basically start a literal stampede almost, and they can't control it.
Yeah.
But like there's a scene where like just Karen and him connect for a moment, and like he realizes that he's done wrong. And that's why I like the ambiguity of the character, because he at least realizes when he's done wrong, and like that wasn't his intention. So yeah, it's like he would have been a bad guy had he never gone, oh, look what I've done.
Yeah, I've incited this mob against the other escaped mental patient.
But let me just call out how badass the bitches can still be in this franchise, and how I think they're still pushing that so far, because Judy Greer, like her character taking over is like, oh, she's fucking awesome. She's great. But I feel like even this was almost this, like, this is the next step, is that she has to almost take over. So she gets to assert to Tommy Doyle's character and be like, no, this is what we're fucking doing. You know, kind of, I feel like she had that vibe. He was like almost leaning on her because she was fucking right. And I kind of like that transition, and I will suspect that we're probably going to see more of that in the last movie, now that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I wonder if, because she kind of took the Laurie role a little bit, right? And this was confusing because it was a kind of passing of the guard a little bit with the Strode women, where, you know, in the first movie, and this is me working through this in my brain as we go here, so like the more I talk about it, the more I'm kind of a little bit more okay with it. But in the first movie, you know, Laurie was the decisive one. Laurie was the action taker, right? She's incapacitated in this movie. And I remember walking out, because I love the character of Laurie Strode and I love Jamie Lee Curtis. So the fanboy in me is going, you didn't give Laurie anything to do the whole fucking movie. Like, she just laid in a hospital bed and had some interactions with Hawkins and had some interactions with Karen and unnecessarily need a doctor in the balls, you know, like, you know, she doesn't really do anything, unfortunately, but she's the main protagonist in the first movie, obviously. And then in this movie, the main protagonist is Karen, right? Is her daughter, is Judy Greer's character. So I've got to assume, you know, this has more to do with the like generational, the responsibility of the trauma, or the blame of the trauma, or however you want to put it, not being on the individuals, but ultimately the responsibility of dealing with it is on the individuals within each generation. So I've got to assume, you know, again, we've already said spoiler alert, so I won't belabor it, but like at the end of this movie, Karen assumingly dies, right? We don't know for sure. I guess they could bring her back, but it seemed pretty clear she was dead. So you got to assume that now all of the remaining kind of efforts will fall on the shoulders of Allison in the third movie. But
just the way, like, so we had this movie pick up exactly after 2018. You have to assume Halloween Ends is going to pick up exactly after that moment, where like everybody is still outside of that house.
Right. Getting motherfucking murdered.
Yeah. Like everybody's...
Michael's going jet Li on
everybody. I just genuinely got so upset at that, because they set it up like this is so perfect. And that's why when I started out this episode, I'm just like, Michael will never fucking die. He just like, I just don't believe it. I think there's something supernatural to his character in ways.
Yeah, I thought that when they were doing like the gang beatdown of Michael, I was like, okay, he's definitely not going to die, because they're not going to let Michael Myers, this iconic character, die at the hands of a bunch of nameless, faceless dickweeds and Tommy Doyle. Sure. You know what I mean? But then when Karen stabbed him, I was like, oh, maybe it is it. I don't know. So they kind of lured you in, like, we might do it. We might do it.
Maybe they'll set it up so that the daughter officially does it. Like, it's not going to be Laurie. It's not going to be, Karen. It's going to be his daughter. But also, it pissed me off because I feel like it should be Laurie.
Yeah, maybe it is. I mean, Laurie's still kicking, so not entirely sure there. But a couple of kind of additional thoughts, or I guess like big scenes, big sequences. Like I said, we won't go through sequence by sequence, but like a couple of things. The firefighter scene. Thoughts on that? Good, bad? I personally, I think there's a little bit of both, but how was that received for you? It wasn't a surprise unless you didn't watch the trailer, but
it felt classic to me. Almost, it felt like expected, but maybe too soon. I don't know. I thought it was gory enough and it seemed to the character.
I was into it because it felt like we're getting this constant ramping up. Like if you follow the timeline of these films, like how it starts with Michael Myers murdering one person, his sister. Then it expands in Halloween 78. He kills a couple people. Then 2018, he kills even more people. So now this one, it's just like a constant building of like, how many people is he going to murder? How many, like how unstoppable is he? How, like, and again, it goes all the way back to that, what is his motivation? But it's just like, when is enough for him?
Yeah. I can appreciate that he's in like full berserker mode, at this point. My issues with this scene, because the imagery was great. I mean, that scene of him walking out and standing on the porch in the doorway with the fire and the water behind him and the lighting, like, I see that as one of the most standouts, especially still images in the history of the franchise. Loved it. My concern comes with, and this is a matter of personal preference, I get it. When Michael goes into this like Jet Li level hand-to-hand battle, it always rubs me the wrong way. And he doesn't do it in the first, he doesn't do it in the original movie, obviously. And like, I like the fact that Michael is like, his superpowers, there's always inconsistencies with Michael's strength. Right. Going back to the first movie when he, and it's a physically kind of dumb scene. It's an iconic scene, and listen, I love it. But when he pins Bob to the door with the knife in the first movie, it's like, how does that work? I get it. But I remember as a kid hating the scene in the second movie where he holds up the nurse with the scalpel in her back. And just thinking like, why do you have to make him Jason? Why do you have to make him so strong and so badass? His thing is he has no remorse. He has no hesitation. He's inhumanly patient. He is inhumanly observant in a predatorial, wild animal type of way where like he will wait and lure you into a false sense of security. And if you give him 1 second, he'll kill you.
Right. A
fraction of a second. So when he goes Terminator like that, it always rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, when he's picking up the firefighter on like the thing he's just stabbed him with, I can deal with it. I didn't love that portion of it. The thing that really stuck out to me as odd with this scene is like, why did the firefighters turn into putties? You know what I mean? Or like the Foot Clan. They all of a sudden were like, let's get them, boys. Like, you're firefighters, you're first responders coming to a burning building that you are worried there's a person in. And also at least one of your fellow firefighters has, obviously put out kind of the Mayday alarm, right? Something's bad. You're in saving people mode. Now all of a sudden you're like, I'm gonna fire up this circular saw and come at you with it. Like, that's a wild decision.
That one I actually felt was pretty funny, genuinely. Like the circular saw.
It was hilarious, but you're right, there should have been some sort of clue for them that they needed to fight him. Some
inciting incident. He comes out with a firefighter, that he has just killed or something.
Yeah, or even his head, and just throws like the head, rolling around in the helmet. Right. Then they have a reason. Yeah, you're right about that. They did.
Well, and also, why are the firefighters all like, they just turn into the Foot Clan or putties or something. Well, and also here's the other thing too is, and this was me I was thinking about this in the drive home from the theater last time. Like, how could they have done that better? Because I would not want to do away with that scene. But my thought was like, in the commotion of the fire and all the just craziness that's happening as you're trying to put out a fire, Michael walks out. Someone walks up to him to try to like, hey, are you okay? Whatever. Yeah. And then he just stabs somebody. And maybe someone comes to rescue him and then he kills somebody else, and you can get creative with the kills. You don't have to do something crazy, but you can get a little bit more creative with it. And then he just kind of slinks off. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know what I mean? He doesn't have to decimate all of these people in this like weird kung fu movie style showdown.
But I feel like this movie portrayed him in that way that, like, you know, you think about it, how did it end? It ended in this similar fashion, just not as aesthetically pleasing as like the fire being the backdrop. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it's definitely building him up to just be this, like, it is almost like rampage mode, almost like I am now fucking done. I'm not playing games. I clearly was just about to be murdered. Though, to briefly dive into, how the fuck did he figure out how to get into that gun safe thing, and how did that gun safe thing be fireproof? I was like, holy shit. I was like, that makes sense. He just found a new spot, but he didn't know about that.
Well, if I recall, Laurie had opened it up in the previous movie because she was equipping everyone with weapons because she was trying to shoot him through the floor.
So you think she maybe left it open and then he just saw it and was like, boom,
or left it unlatched or something.
That doesn't seem like a Laurie move, though. I feel like at this point she seems so calculated. But I guess at the same time, this movie is also setting it up to be like Laurie isn't perfect, you know? Like she's calculating all the ways that she's fucked up and not been able to actually execute this, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of was the point, though, that, you know, what causes Karen to become the main character in this is that she is now taking on the responsibility because for all of Laurie's planning, they still couldn't kill him. Mm-hmm. So like for everything that they wanted to do and kill him and end it all, she couldn't. So now that's why it has to be, you know, her plan and her responsibility. But yeah, I think she just one slip up of leaving that gun, you know, that gun case open with the metal door. And then Michael was able to slip into it and hide himself.
I find that to be mildly interesting because I feel like Karen did not. I mean, she's clearly equipped and like got all the training, but like I just find it interesting that they would want to just like almost not like pawn it off on her. Like, how could she do better than Laurie being the most prepared? Like, what is Laurie missing per se?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that she was pawning it off. She was taking a completely different approach because she didn't want Allison going out and fighting anymore. She was reserved to the idea that they couldn't beat Michael. You know, it wasn't until that they caused the death of that other patient and Karen needs to get her daughter back that they decide to put together this other plan.
And the narrative was like she needs to take up the mantle because she maybe understands because of her experience growing up and Laurie being her mother and the, you know, all the things she had been told her entire life. She knew that maybe she had an angle to try to beat Michael or kill Michael in a way that other people in the town didn't, but she didn't want to take on the responsibility because she had just resigned herself to like, no, I'm looking out for myself. I'm looking out for my immediate family, that sort of thing. And then, you know, when somebody who is equipped to do the job doesn't step up, then you end up with dickheads like Tommy Doyle. Right. You know what I mean? So it's almost like that responsibility, not only for herself, but like the greater good kind of thing ends up falling on her shoulders.
And also at that point, like you also have like the police essentially defeated in a way because they can't handle the mob. They can't handle Michael, you know. The sheriff in this movie.
Yeah.
Just a small thing. Just how great would it have been if he was actually Anthony Anderson's character from The Town That Dreaded Sundown?
Yeah. He seemed to be channeling that with the cowboy hat and the fancy suit. You know what I mean?
I was like, man, why not just hire Anthony Anderson and have him play a retired Texas Ranger?
Because they couldn't afford Anthony Anderson for a role like that, I guess. It was. He was pretty ineffective as a police chief, obviously. But so jumping ahead just a little bit, I liked the surprise killing of Karen at the end. You know, you don't really know how it's going to end. They lure you into, hey, look, here's the panning in shots of them hugging on the stairs outside, and almost like the catharsis is starting, type of thing. And then Karen sees, and then they surprise you, right?
Yeah.
With Karen getting killed. I personally, I thought that was fine. But what is the significance of Karen seeing young Michael in the clown costume up in his window? Was that her sympathizing or empathizing with Michael in some way? And that was her. I'm trying to make the connection of like what there was obviously some heavy symbolism happening there, and maybe it'll come to light a little bit more in the next movie, but
I genuinely think we'd be reaching to try to fully understand it, and maybe Steve has a different perspective on that. But I also think there is a small chance in this universe of Halloween that maybe Karen isn't dead.
It's possible.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody cannot be dead. I mean, Michael got his goddamn head cut off in H2O and then popped back in the next movie. So that, yeah, anything can happen here. She could. I mean, we all thought Hawkins was dead. I think,
right?
Totally.
In the first movie. So it's like you never really know. But my thought immediately, and again, this is me being jaded by this franchise for a quarter century. Is Karen having some sort of telepathic connection to Michael? Are they gonna bring back the family tie thing that they swore to have retconned out? I don't know. I mean, far-fetched fan theory. I get it, but like, why did she see him?
I think it was just like sloppy symbolism.
Just surface level symbolism?
Yeah, because and it was also sloppy, because why would Karen know what young Michael looks like?
Exactly. True. That's why I was confused.
Unless in the training or something like that Laurie then imparted that on her and was like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, that's the only other plausible thing I think.
Or maybe it's just in newspaper clippings, like when Michael as a child was originally arrested. Yeah. But like the whole thing they go through is there's this symbolism of maybe Michael, when he's standing at that window, he's not looking out on the world, he's looking back in on himself. So you get this whole thing of, and it's just like sloppy kind of lazy symbolism of, oh, we need to look inside of ourselves to understand ourselves. And then Karen goes in to look outside, to look out the window that Michael looks out, and I think she's trying to gain Michael's perspective. Yeah, the same way like the sheriff did, the same way everybody else has, and
same way Sartain tried to, and he ultimately was his demise too. Yeah,
and it's just like you can't understand Michael, unless you're Michael. No, I think you're right, because that was the one thing I did like is they took they didn't take a ton of bold swings on this. In some of the scenes and stuff they did, but I mean, as far as like things that are really impactful for the storyline going forward, the only really big thing that this movie took was the narrative is now shifted, whereas Michael isn't really after Laurie. Right.
That's not his goal. It was 100% happenstance. It was Sartain bringing them together because he was trying to understand Michael, but they've come to the conclusion now that he was never really specifically after Laurie in any way that was more significant than he was after anybody else. It's all about coming home. It's all about, that standing in that specific spot in his sister's bedroom and trying to understand himself, I guess, or being aware of himself in a way that he never will be able to be.
Let's just say that this is a movie about how your ego can get the best of you, because Laurie's like, this is about me. Hawkins is like, this is about me. And then Michael Myers is like, no, this is about me. I don't know. Like, it's just like his extreme.
Right, and then, but I think even trying to project the idea that Michael is trying to understand himself is again, it's just adding ego to something that isn't there. I think some people call it out perfectly when they say he's just an animal, he's just an apex predator. That's all it is.
I would prefer that. Honestly, I would fucking prefer that.
Yeah, that's all it is. And he stands in that window when he's not killing the same way a cat looks at a fucking wall.
Wow, you're saying a cat is an apex predator right now?
Yeah, cats are pretty strong. They're good. They're good at killing.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny is I think it was the guy who plays him. I feel like I remember hearing that in an interview or reading that in an interview that he studied cats.
Yeah. Okay.
And the way that they walk in felines, literally as a predator, because the reason I remember this is they were talking about how cats don't just kill out of necessity; they kill because they like to kill.
Yeah. That's why you find that's why if you ever had a cat, it'll bring you mouse presents. It wasn't going to eat it. It just said, "Ha, look what I did."
Yeah.
I like to hunt and I like to kill.
I grew up in New Jersey and I had a cat that would bring us flounder, baby flounder from across the street. That was also a good one. And since the story is far enough removed, I also grew up on a Coast Guard base and one time brought us a parakeet, It's just like a present.
You just out of someone's house.
Yeah, it was like, this is definitely a pet.
That's a
and
pet.
that's like, and my parents were like, don't tell anyone. I'm like, okay, well now 20 years later,
our
I'm
pets'
coming
heads
out.
are falling
I'm coming
off.
out.
Listen, if we're airing dirty laundry, Meg killed all her neighbors' pets.
No, I'm just exposing my cat.
Meg is an apex predator.
Meg is the apex predator.
That's what it'll be for
She's
Halloween.
going around in a little ghost costume.
That's what it'll be for Halloween, guys.
So I'm thinking through this, right? This is we're less than 24 hours into, after seeing this movie, and I'm thinking through this stuff a little bit more, and I guarantee my thoughts will evolve on this movie, over in the coming days and weeks as well. But I'm starting to think that maybe Michael getting up at the end from another multiple gunshots and a stabbing in the spine or whatever from Karen and getting his just ass whooped with a bunch of 2x4s and all that stuff, again, it's certainly not realistic, and neither is him picking up a firefighter kind of thing. There's nothing, you know what I mean? They've kind of abandoned that, and frankly, it's in the DNA of the franchise.
Yeah. Also, it's not. It doesn't click all the time, but you have to remember he's easily in his 60s. He's an old man.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I know some old people. They couldn't take a punch, let alone.
Yeah. He's got old man strength.
Yeah.
But it's it's funny because him getting up at the end, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. And again, I'm thinking about this. I'm working through my head as I'm talking here. But the idea of after he kills the first time, which is his sister when he's 6 in 1963 or whatever, he comes outside and he gets caught. Right, his parents catch him and ultimately get taken to the asylum and all that stuff. Then 20-ish years later, whatever it is.
15.
No, it wasn't 20. It would have been 15 years later because he was 21. 15 years later in 78, he gets taken down again right outside the house in the same way. And they show this scene later on. This is when Loomis is going to kill him, but Hawkins saves him. He recognizes in that moment that he is dead to rights, and he is going to allow himself to be taken in again. Yeah. And the way I'm taking that, this might be wrong, and again, I'm the kind of talking through this. He was 21. He knows instinctually in some capacity that he has a whole life ahead of him still at 21. So he can go to this asylum and he has time to bide, right, for another escape. Now, that's 20 years later on top of that, or no, it's more than 20 years later on top of that. It's 40 years later on top of that, because I keep thinking H2O, but H2O didn't happen. H2O didn't happen in this scene, or I mean in this timeline. 40 years later, he gets the opportunity again.
Yeah.
The inhuman patience. He gets the opportunity to again. And the reason he gets up is because he knows instinctually that he might not get another chance. You know what I mean? He's in his 60s now. He's if he's got to wait 40 more years, it ain't going to happen, right?
Yeah.
He can tell that he's not as powerful as fit or whatever. Who knows? Maybe he's peaking right now. I don't know. But instinctually, that animalistic instinct of his knows that if he goes back and he gives himself up, he might not get another opportunity.
Yeah. And also, like, the more it also just kind of ties back into like the why the more he's killing more is also because he's becoming more and more of a cornered animal. Like the more an animal is sick and dying, the more it fights.
Yeah.
So yeah,
totally.
that makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the whole, what Laurie says about the more he kills, the more he transcends.
Right.
I'm a little nervous about what that means. That just Laurie being Laurie, or is he gonna go Super Saiyan on everybody?
Well, that's why I was also like saying, like, he almost has this like supernatural character to him that, I mean, like, it would be almost like a wild card thing for them to try to introduce him the next one, but I don't know if I'd put it up like. I don't know. I don't think everyone would stop.
I would hope they don't.
I don't think it is. What I think it is, it's more of an allusion to. So like throughout both of the movies, you see a lot of like mythos going along. Like they touch on the fact that like Laurie actually isn't his sister in 2018. You know, they make a little fun about that. And then they talk like you have the characters of Big John and Little John who live in the Myers house in this film.
Yeah.
And they tell a version of the story to the kids they're trying to scare. So like the more Michael kills, the bigger his story becomes, the more he transcends to just being a symbol of fear. Because eventually it's going to get out of Haddonfield. And I mean, at this point, it's definitely going to get out of Haddonfield because he's killed 30 fucking people in 24 hours.
Yeah, there ain't no more people in Haddonfield. Yeah. He done killed them all. I speaking of Big John and Little John, I did appreciate that the guy who played Little John was the guy who played Stuart on Mad TV.
Look what I can do.
Look what I can do. I just couldn't. I was really like, I know he's not going to say it, but I hope he says it.
There was
when he brought out the charcuterie board, I wanted him to be like, look what I can do.
There was an unnerving amount of comedians, like older comedians.
I know, yeah, the old couple early on. What's that guy's name?
Lenny Clark.
They're both Lenny
and
Clark.
Then his partner, I've seen on like a couple like primetime shows that I'm just like, yeah, no, he's always played like a humorous character as well. Like he was kind of some goofball, and he played too. I was actually liked them as a couple. I just was like, why is this so funny? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why are so many people laughing right now? I want people to be scared and crying and screaming in this theater right now.
You know, they definitely represented the thing that the kid represented in the first movie in terms of they were the levity characters, which is fine. I can appreciate that. Typically is somebody like that in the Halloween franchise. I overall, I really like the brutality of like the stakes were raised. The gore was pretty over the top. But again, this is Michael in Berserker mode, so I did not really have an issue with that. I know some people were like, "This is Rob Zombie level gore and brutality, like it's ridiculous," and I'm like, "Yeah, it actually might be on par with like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which has got to be the most gory entry in the franchise before this." Like, but you know what? It didn't seem silly gore, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there probably was upon a couple times, you know, but in my mind, like I'm struggling to think of something that was just like silly gore for the sake of gore.
Yeah, it wasn't terribly like we're doing things to be cool or weird about them, because like if I just watched Jason 6 not too long ago, and Jason 6 is full of like crazy shit. And then
it's fun. It's killing is fun.
Right. It's Mortal Kombat fatalities. The movie is what it is. But like this is a great way to put it. Yeah, even that last scene where Michael is up and he's just stabbing people with a knife. Like they're not trying to be overly inventive with it. It's just the animal is killing right now. And I love the way that scene was filmed, where it's just basically on a blank slate, and you just have lights. It's just all backlit, and you have
I don't know why I really didn't like it in the moment. I'm gonna rewatch it. I'm not gonna do the same thing at 2018 and wait like 3 years to watch it again. I want to watch it again. I might actually go to the theaters and watch it again. But first time I watched it, I don't know why I felt like that, because it almost felt like a comic book.
a little bit.
I
just felt like it tied really well because it's Laurie talking at the moment, and she's talking about Michael in the abstract. She's talking about him as like a symbol of fear, and so I just felt it tied visually well with like, he's just in this abstract space killing, because it's not necessarily Michael, it's whatever Michael represents for you, like whatever fear is for you.
No, I can appreciate that, and I am eager to watch that sequence again and see if I feel differently about it, because for whatever reason, I'm more emotionally connected to this film and this franchise than I am other franchises. So I get that my reactions are much more emotional in this franchise than it is with anything else or any other movie that I would watch. So I can appreciate that. It just, for whatever reason in the moment, just like it was like reminiscent of like Sin City or something like that. I don't know why. Just like that splattering and slow motion and all that sort of thing just kind of like stuck out to me in a weird way.
It's definitely stylized, but I just felt like it stylized properly. So
yeah. Can I say something that's such a small thing and just stuck out? And I usually don't like to nitpick stuff like this, but this one was so stupid to me. It was the fact that in the hospital, what appeared to be like a coroner's office type of room that just had dead bodies displayed on a table was just open to windows to the public in the general area where people were just wandering. I was
did the door say like coroner or something on it, or was it just like was it just a
holding room?
Was it just a room that was like overfilling with people because like they got to clean up a lot of shit?
Yeah, I get it, but it's just like, close the blinds. You don't need naked dead people with their dicks out, also, for everyone to see as they're walking by.
And just so happens that kid's mom sees him. Yeah, it was silly.
It just felt like a gratuitous, unnecessary part. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why I don't take that much offense to it or anything. It's just like, oh, come on.
There is like a lot of little stupid things in this movie. Like I have a note that says, "Is this dialogue for stupid babies?" Because there's just so many, like, and I think it's just to get characters' lines, but it's like I think he's not sheriff in this one, but Brackett. After the mental,
he's this guard in the hospital now.
He has like some of the worst lines.
Oh man, he quotes something from the first movie. What is? Everyone's entitled to one good scare. That's what his quote, which is, of course, an iconic. But it's just like, would he have really remembered that one thing he took?
Yeah.
It's like,
he has another line where he's like, he's turning us into monsters. And it's like, we get it. We just saw it happen.
It was just fan service. It was unnecessary fan service, which I'm usually a sucker for that. But whatever. Sheriff Brackett's character in this was like, he didn't have to be in this. But it was just, I get it. It was the generational trauma and everything. But it's dialogue. I like dialogue for stupid babies.
There's a lot of bad fucking
stupid babies need the most attention.
There's a lot of bad unnecessarily dialogue that just reiterates either something you just saw or somebody else said more subtly, and you just like, why? This movie sounds stupid at times.
No, I get it. It felt I am starting to, and part of it is the discussion that we're having and being able to process things through other people's brains a little bit too. I feel like I'm turning a little bit of a corner on it because, like I said, I walked out of the movie. I didn't feel disappointed because my expectations were not that high.
Right.
But I really was, I guess, in the back of my mind, hopeful that I would walk out like on cloud nine like I did in 2018, and I didn't. And I was just like, okay, another. But I think, I'm starting to turn around to it a little bit more. But I wonder how much it will actually translate to me, feeling better about the movie when I watch it again or not. I don't know. I think it was a good entrance.
I genuinely feel like I genuinely don't think I definitely want to watch it again, first and foremost, but I don't think I'll fully be able to understand how I feel about it until I see the third one. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I think that might be the case, again, symptomatic of any movie that is the middle movie in a trilogy, right?
Again, did you write a 3-hour movie and pad it into 2 movies, or
did you write a fleshed out trilogy? We will find out. When is it next year? Is the next one plan on coming out right away next year? Yeah. I'm excited for that.
I'm so impatient.
Listen, you should give me a new Halloween movie every damn year, and I'll keep going and watching them. Like I said, I have Stockholm syndrome with this franchise. I've been on the highest mountains and the lowest valleys with the Halloween franchise, and I will continue to go along for that ride. I just love the character of Michael and like the cerebral, imperfection that makes him kind of this weird supervillain is just like infinitely interesting to me. I don't know why. And the music is so fucking good. I'm a sucker for a good score, and it's so good. And I really like the visual direction of in the cinematography in these 2 movies. I love the look of them. I love the street scenes, especially in the flashback to 78, where they softened the edges on things a little bit just to give you that impression of the flashback. Man,
I don't know if you've probably already said this today or not, but like talking about flashbacks, but also some cinematography, is that I feel like even just some of those close-ups that are being done have this like throwback vibe, but with a modern, obviously nicer camera. So I think that kind of plays into this like throwback as well, which I did like.
Yeah, everything's highly stylized for sure.
Yeah, even towards the end where they're kind of laying the trap for Michael and Karen makes her run from the Myers house to where she's heading, I felt like it really mimicked the original 78 kind of escape, just the way she's hiding
between the hedgerows type of thing. And
around the fences and just the tight corners and everything.
I love that. I love the so many of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise, whether it be from 2018, the original movie, or even Halloween 2. I mean, iconic scene in the original Halloween 2 and 81 Halloween 2. It all happens in the backyards of Haddonfield and the alleys of Haddonfield. Like those are my favorite scenes. Those are the things that make me think of like, I could put myself in that world. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, with this trip I have coming up to go to LA, I did catch that in Pasadena is the Michael Myers house that I could possibly go see. So it's on my list, and I'm hoping to go check it out.
Yeah, I've been told that the house was moved, I think, if I read correctly. Like they literally, they kind of, however they do that, picked up the house, moved it, several blocks away or whatever, but years ago, right? So I think the house exists, and the people who live there are obviously like mindful of people coming up and doing it, so they have like I feel like they're pretty like open to people taking pictures outside, or at least used to it, kind of thing. Yeah. And then I have seen pictures of people going, which I guess is only a few blocks away, to the iconic hedgerow that Michael steps out from behind in the first movie.
Definitely want to find that. If it's close enough, I know I won't have a car the first couple of days, but I'm excited. Regardless, I think it'd be cool to stop there when I saw that I possibly could.
Any final thoughts on Halloween Kills 2021?
Did anybody pick up the Sick Voodoo Ranger product placement?
No.
Oh yes, I did. I did see that, because he was like holding it and covering it so like heavily, and I was like, man, I just want, like, what was next to it? It was a Miller High Life draft, I think, next to it. Yeah, I don't know why I'm like super attuned to it.
Was it the draft line up there in the bar?
Yeah. And also he the black nurse who is dressed as a doctor. His costume is a doctor.
But I know, I think she is a doctor dressed as a nurse.
Yeah, he's a nurse dressed as a doctor, and she's a doctor dressed as a nurse. Right. He goes to the bar and Mick's, and he orders, give me that voodoo skeleton thing, and it's on a New Belgium tap.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard him say something about a skeleton thing, and I thought, for some reason, for me, it was he ordered like a like a specialty Halloween cocktail or something that they had. I guess, because I didn't really hear exactly what he said. But.
My also final thoughts on it about that couple, I was kind of like bummed that they killed them off so early as well. I felt like they could have had potential to like be cool characters like for the whole series, and they just killed them off.
Yeah, the arguing couple, is always going to get it, because they're going to put themselves into weird positions because of their arguing and their like haphazardness and stuff. But the scene in which they were killed off, which is, of course, the scene in the park, and then Michael, climbing over the back of the SUV, and that whole sequence was probably my favorite sequence in the movie. And then leading into him chasing Lindsay through the park was so. It was just such a cool visual scene, and the kills were good in that sequence as well. And then something about her hiding down along that creek bed, and then him walking, and the fact that they dropped the music out during that, just seeing like really intentional, obviously intentional, but really a unique decision.
Yeah,
and I want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Because in the moment, I'm like, this seems kind of weird. Why did the music drop out? The stalking music dropped out, and you hear his footprints like really heavy on the wood, of the bridge, and it was just like, oh, such a interesting decision.
Yeah, it's funny though that you mentioned that the arguing couple gets it a lot of the time, because you do see them briefly in 2018.
Yeah, in the car.
When he's coming down the street. Like they're arguing on the street, and then they get in the car and leave before he has a chance to really attack him.
And it's because he left his stethoscope again.
No. I'm talking. You go back
in 2018.
Yeah, 2018.
I think the reason he's
yeah.
like, all right, hold on. Crap, I got to go back in the house. I forgot my stethoscope.
That's right,
and then in this one, he forgets it in the bar.
Right.
So it's like he's always forgetting his stethoscope. But anyway, I'm starting to soften on it, and maybe it's in my brain, and by this time tomorrow, I'll be like, this is my favorite movie of all time. I don't
probably
know.
Not.
No, probably not. But overall, like I think it was a good entrance into the franchise, and I do think it suffers from that middle film type of thing, but I am excited. It definitely kept my excitement up about the trilogy. So
I feel like when the last part comes out, more people are going to like this one more, and it'll just wind up getting paired together like like when you watch Lord of the Rings, and you just watch both at the same time.
Yeah, or even like 4, 5, and 6 kind of thing in this franchise. Like people used to, everyone softens on this stuff over time, and there's ebbs and flows. Like I remember when people hated 4, 5, and 6, and now people were like, then people started to go like, no, 4 is pretty cool, 4's fun, and now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, 6 is great. I'm like, no, it's fucking not. I think it's just because they like Paul Rudd, but it's 6 is bad, real bad. Like don't get me wrong, I like it. I like a lot of bad movies, but it's like it's not good, and 5 is worse. 4 is okay.
4 is okay, but
Danielle Harris, boy, she acts her a little freaking heart out, what I mean, and you can appreciate that, and she has a real, like, her performance is great. But we're not talking about 4, 5, and 6, guys. Stop getting me started on this shit. Meg, any final thoughts? Are you excited about the third one?
I like how you're trying to wrap me back into this. Like,
are you putting it on your calendar? Are you putting it on your calendar?
Yeah, of course. Oh my God, someone was just staring at me. Holy shit. And Michael Myers.
Is he off on the corner of on the edge of the wood line?
You know what? Let me paint a
picture.
picture. We're recording while we're all working, mind you. I have a exit on the other side of my office that has a huge window, so people can scare the fuck out of me. People just like creep over there. They just like walk in and they'll just like stare at me through the window, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this shit. So it's very Michael Myers-esque. That's my final thoughts. I have no other final thoughts besides the shit that I brought up. Mediocre movie. I'm excited for the next one. I hope it's better. I like the first one. Let's do this.
Yep.
Party.
Yep, I think we're all pretty close on the same page here.
I'm gonna go smash some more Natty Frights.
Do it. They go down.
That's my fucking night, guys.
So spooky fast. Yo, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
I threw a
I had
terrible
no
pun in there.
thoughts besides I'm gonna go find a pumpkin to shotgun this out of. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah. Listen, I'm having a little Halloween get together tomorrow, so I'm getting all spooky ooky over here. So,
Hell yeah, brother.
cool. Well, thank you for tuning in, hearing us talk about Halloween Kills. We're gonna have another fun, spooky season themed minisode for us next week. And like I said, once spooky season is over, we talk about fucking horror movies all year long, guys. So like, subscribe. Follow the podcast on whatever your podcast app is. I know we're getting a ton of new listeners and new people downloading our show for the very first time. So if you go into that little podcast app, do that little like, subscribe, follow thing, you'll get all those episodes notifications when they pop up, which is every single damn Monday. And as always, offer's still on the table. Check us out on our Instagram. We got some pretty cool Halloween is Forever stickers, and you give us a rating and write a little 1 or 2 line review there on the Apple Podcasts if that's where you listen to your podcast. Give us a little review, and I'll send you some goddamn stickers for reviews. The offer still remains. Otherwise, check us out on the Instagram at Halloween is Forever. At Hallow Forever on Twitter, Halloween is Forever Podcast on Facebook, Halloween is Forever Pod on our TikToks, and then Halloween is Forever Pod on Gmail as well. So if there's nothing else.
Just one more plug.
Yeah, what's that?
tpublic.com, search Halloween is Forever. You can get a t-shirt.
Ooh,
yeah, or check out our link tree in the bio there on the Instagrams or the Twitters or whatever. I am looking at a nice Halloween is Forever mug that I ordered as well. So,
nice.
In any case, for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
I'm Steve.
We'll see you around. Bye.